Hey, welcome back to Two Super Guys Trade Stocks. I am Dylan.
And I'm Vinny, and today we're going to talk about Baba. Is Baba a black sheep? Is it like that kind of stepchild that no one really wants? Talk about some Reddit posts that people have been really disappointed in Baba recently. I'm talking about why it's kind of ridiculous, in my stupid guy opinion.
Two stupid guys trade stocks.
Yep.
Hmm.
hmm Yeah, exactly. So Burry and Munger still do own the stock as far as we know, more recent quarterly filing. But I want to talk about whether or not Alibaba truly is this black sheep that's out underperforming and it's disgusting and no, it needs to do something. People have this ridiculous zoomed in view on the chart. This is a 1 month chart of Alibaba stock. And it's just languishing here. It's
Well,
ridiculous.
I mean, is
Do
it is
something.
it's never great when the candles are hitting the volume. That's
True.
it's not ideal.
Yeah.
It means it's super low.
Yeah, no, that is indeed true. But like, I don't know if you've ever noticed that there's actually a Reddit subforum that's just dedicated to Alibaba stock, and these are some of the posts of like the last week, basically just talking about how it's like it seems like it does nothing. Well, what is happening? Why are we down? We have this free cash flow. The shares outstanding are barely moving. Like it's a lot of like whining and complaining. I mean, a lot of Reddit maybe seems like whining and complaining to me in
Yeah,
general.
welcome to
Um,
social media. That's like 90% of it.
Yeah, it's just funny. Like people talk about having a long term perspective, and then like they're like, "Why haven't done anything this week?"
Because those people don't have a long-term perspective. Those people have options.
I mean, it's complicated. Okay, I mean, nothing in life is that
I
simple, right?
I would like to
Um,
respond though, because I don't like. I mean, you could argue their biggest competitor is JD, and I think they're up more than JD. I would have to look though.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. That's not something that, for me personally, I pay attention to the news story. Yeah, I'll watch the daily fluctuations, but I don't get overly emotionally invested in it. And then it's really the quarterly reports that when they come out, that's the part that I care about the most. That's what I'm learning. How is the
Yep.
business that I bought a tiny little microscopic, micro penis portion of, how is it doing? That's what I really want to know, right?
It's all about
Let's
how
do
the
it.
micro penises are doing. I agree. That's very important.
Yeah, it's very important. So this is from macro trends. This is shares outstanding, right? You're starting to see it accelerate a little bit in terms of the share count decreasing. Right? They are buying back. I think it was $3.3 billion, and they had $1.1 billion in stock-based comp last quarter. So like $2.2 billion net. It's got a small portion when you're talking about a $200 billion company, and you're talking about them having $80 billion in freaking cash and cash equivalents on their balance sheet. So yeah, it'd be nice if I saw them deployed a little bit more aggressively. It's particularly it's ridiculously low price, in my stupid guy opinion. Talked about that in the quarterly report video. But what I want to kind of highlight with this stock right here, Apple. This has been the buyback king to show you the power of what buybacks can do for your stock price over time. Um, and you're looking at early days here back in 2014 where they were buying back 7% in a quarter. Like, that was substantial reduction in the number of shares outstanding. And, over time, they've continued to chew them up. But the kind of point I want to highlight here is that's the same time period here where you saw the really aggressive share buybacks, and look how long it took before the stock price really started to take off.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of tech stocks in that period though, right? Like Microsoft
Yeah,
as well. There's
Microsoft.
a ton of stocks that were increasing cash flow and just not moving.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, people really, you need to have, and when they say the long term perspective, it can take 5 years or longer for the current kind of dynamic you're seeing, put in place by management with a buying back these shares to actually be reflected in the stock price. It takes a long time for that to come to fruition. So really, you have to be patient, not just on a monthly or even like these guys like a weekly basis, but like this is a multi-year process. Like the idea of me buying Alibaba shares is that I can ignore it and forget about it for the next 10, 20 years. That's really the kind of time horizon you have to have these buybacks be accretive in this business that's generating positive free cash flow and growing it annually to actually be accretive to your valuation of the business.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if you sold Apple right here in 2019. That'd be real depressing. Kind of like
Yeah.
me selling Nvidia before earnings. Same thing.
Yeah. But what's so funny? You're talking about that is like that is a little blip. Just one of these little blips here is that Nvidia before earnings.
It's
And when
true.
you really zoom out, it's like it's barely any sort of movement at all over the long term. And we have had a lot of like kind of negative news headlines recently with this whole is China going to start supplying weapons to Russia? Like this article is funny. This is from CNBC from today, but basically that rumor came from Russia, so we should totally trust what they have to say about things.
Yeah. I mean, it also came from the news. I don't. They need clicks.
Yeah, yeah, I just think it's ridiculous. Like, yeah, Munger talked about this in the Daily Journal kind of annual meeting, saying that if anything, I think that the Russian invasion of Ukraine actually stymied or tempered any risk of the China invading Taiwan, because they saw how defensible this with modern weapons, a small territory like that could be, even when facing like what would be a significantly larger military.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a walk in the park. Turns out it is not.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even begin to imagine. So, this is another point. This is actually from an article from October. One of the things that's kind of interesting with this pseudo Chinese kind of capitalist adjacent structure is that they don't have a long ingrained history of significant buybacks. They are growing. Like, this 85% increase in buybacks year over year is a pretty startling number. But it's not something that they've been doing for such a long time at such a large pace. I mean, think about, like I said, that graph I showed you there of Apple doing this back in 2014. China wasn't doing buybacks back then. Like, it just wasn't a thing that occurred.
It's weird because I think it's the only blend in the history of mankind where it's communism and capitalism. So
Yeah.
there's not really anything to compare it to. So
Yeah. And they're slowly moving the right way. Like, this article from October of 2022, the real main point here is that they were easing the restrictions on share buybacks. And as a result of that, you saw a dramatic increase in the number of share buybacks happening. However, that's going to take a significant portion of time and, for that to be eating up those shares over years and years, where hopefully the price stays low, because that's a more boon to the later on shareholders. But it's not something that they have a strong history or culture of. So they're in the early kind of years of putting this into practice on a regular basis.
Yep. No, I mean, look, there's no risk in. I mean, so I just said there's no risk. There's all risk in investing, right? You're always going to be risking something. I said the opposite. Oops.
It's all good. Yeah, I get what your point is, but so I took the slide from the most recent quarterly announcement here. This is the part that you really have to be kind of reassured by. You're still talking about almost $80 billion in cash and cash equivalents, and you're talking about they generated 11.8 billion in free cash flow in this most recent quarter, and they had a 15% increase year over year. Like, those are all metrics that are going phenomenally well. Who gives a shit what the stock chart looks like on a
Yeah,
freaking
that's
goddamn
super
weekly
good.
basis?
Yeah,
You know?
actually, that would probably be the best lesson of this. You showed the Apple stock, for 6 years didn't move. This could do the same thing, and then you make 300% return in 1 year, just like Apple, right? You just don't know when it's going to be because these numbers, it's kind of gross.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty wild. There's no American company that has this deal that I can think of.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I'm not gonna lie. Like, obviously, everyone has their own game to play here, but as long as the business is still doing well enough here, like, I am perfectly content to keep holding this, and I hope the stock stays flat. Because every share that they buy back at this point is going to be that much more in terms of return on invested capital years down the road, if this continues to happen for the underlying business. That's what really counts. It's how you make these massive multi-bagger returns. Like, that's what really drives the bus, at least in my stupid guy understanding of this crap. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it just takes time. It would be really really shitty to do your due diligence and invest in Apple and Microsoft for the first time in 2012, right? Because you're like, man, they're making so much money. Why is it not reflecting? 5 years go by. Man, why is this not going up? You don't know when it happens. So, I mean, as long as I guess you're not 60, then, I mean, that
Yeah,
does make a difference.
investing in individual stocks at that point in time in your life is probably a very different game. Fortunately, it's not a problem I have to worry about right now.
Yeah, I
Because if
just
I
turned
do,
15, so
yeah,
good.
yeah, I could tell. Yeah, it's just starting to grow a little bit of hair.
It's
I
five
have the
weeks.
gray beard now, so it's like almost like I should probably start
Oh,
planning for retirement.
fuck, you do.
But like the whole idea, 20 years from now, it's like I'm still not going to be retirement age, or not quite retirement age, that sort of thing. I'm be getting close, but I have enough time that I can let something like this work itself out. That the actual weighing of the stock and the valuation will eventually come back into a line that makes sense with the underlying business and the cash flow that's generated by this underlying business.
Yep, for sure, man. I mean, I'm in it with you. So I don't want to buy more shares. I just want it to hit 60. So,
Love it.
all right,
All right,
guys.
guys.
Let
Catch you
us
next one.
know if you're invested in Baba, if you're waiting for a specific price, and for that dude who said 60 and then it actually happened, might happen again. So.
Might.